Put down that bass, David. We've got important work to do. Welcome on, bienvenue. Welcome to Modern Sales Meltdown with myself, Gareth Wax of the Mini Hats, and of course, David Treacle Chernick. There we go. And we talk about all the things that affect and will help you make the ideal sale, and more importantly, what steps to go through to make sure that process is as consistent and likely to come through for you as possible. And today we are talking about the often used, and according to David, misused concept of the solution sale.
Everybody talks about the solution.
A bit of echo on that. Solution. Yeah. Sales.
We need room noise.
That's it. So, so what is and what isn't? I have people approaching me saying, "Well, I don't have much presence on social media. Can you provide me a solution to that?" And I go, "Well, if you use this service and this service in this manner, then that will provide your solution." And apparently, that's not a solution sale.
Well, look, I mean, I can be a little bit pedantic about my language, but the only reason that I am pedantic about my language is because...
Is you're a pedant?
No, it's not. It's not. It's because I am fixated with conversion rates.
Okay.
I want people to be closing more deals, right? I don't care about the lingo. Right, I start sentences with the word because and you know I don't know whether that's I think it's fine. But, you know, I use the Oxford comma. Yeah, I'm pedantic about some things, but it's all because I want us to be closing more deals. So if it ain't closing more deals, you won't find me being pedantic about language.
Right.
And solution selling is one of those sort of stock phrases that is used by sellers. I think to try and make their offerings just sound a little bit more posh, a little bit more consultative, a little bit more high level.
I think there was a point when solution selling first came about as a concept that it kind of almost was, this is a tier above normal selling, this is solution selling. And I don't know if it still has that same cachet. But
well, of course it doesn't, because everybody uses it.
Well, there you go. It's when everybody
services uses it.
It's when everybody says the same thing, it instantly becomes verbal spam, doesn't it?
Exactly. And in your world, you know, it used to be that engagement really meant something, you know. And we've talked about
how dare you?
We used to talk about value added as well, you know, on this show. We talk about value added. Value added is a very, very specific use in closing deals, right? But, you know, people just throw that term away, value added, as if it's trying to describe, well, you know, I've got so much extra stuff in my solution. It just makes it extra valuable. That's not it. Okay. And it doesn't help you convert more deals. Whatever you label it doesn't help you convert more deals. Right. So I'm here to tell you how to use solution selling, the proper term of that, to help you close more deals. And it's to do with, and this is where it originated from, it's to do with how you communicate what you are selling, how you do your actual pitch at that time when they have told you their problem. So just remind us what the problem that people present you with is, Gary. Who
the hell's that? The problem people come to me with is they don't have enough time, and they want to be able to have a presence, and they haven't got enough authority, that people don't perceive them as being the person or the company they should come to provide a certain solution.
Okay, so they don't have the time and
inclination, or they can't be asked.
They don't have the time or the
inclination,
or they can't be asked. But they know that they need to have a greater presence. They know that they need to have more authority. So what I would be asking at that point is, well, what is the problem that you're facing? What's stopping you doing that? You know, is it a matter of you don't have the time, inclination, motivation? You know, those are potential problems, right? I get it. What's the impact of that on you? Yeah, where is this heading? Why is that an issue? I would be asking.
The usual response, well, I very rarely ask that direct question. What I tend to ask is, if you had more cognition, if more people understood what you did and recognized you as being an authority in this field, how do you think that would impact your sales? That's what I can.
Yeah.
And they
the question, but from a more positive angle.
And what most people think is that's going to provide loads more sales, and it doesn't. What it gets, it makes the passage of getting from cold to being warm much quicker. Because if they recognize you as a force for good, and if they recognize your authority, they're far more likely to go, yeah, okay, I agree, you can do that. Now tell me how you do it in my circumstance.
Okay. So what they've articulated, what I seem to be picking up from that is that the problem that leads to is they don't get enough sales.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be asking that question up front. I actually, I actually avoid trying to get people at this point to visualize a positive future, because what I really want to do is to understand the problem, right? This is important because a solution is only relevant if there is a problem. A solution only delivers something valuable if there's a decent enough problem to solve.
And we do,
and it only delivers, and if it doesn't deliver value, they ain't going to pay the sort of money that you'd think it might be worth.
Well, yes, and I think we live in an age where people are coming up with solutions to problems that don't exist.
Yeah, there could well be that. I think, yeah, there could well be that. People are a bit flummoxed, especially at the moment, because we're in a new technology age again. But the point of really trying to isolate what the problem is so that we can then have a solution to it. All right. And here's the important bit. I mean, it's all important, but here's the answer to the question. The solution. Here's the science. So grab your pens and write this down. The way that solution selling was originally envisaged as a solution to people's problems was what the buyer expected as the solution. So the question that you want to be writing down, and the question that you want to be asking people, is as follows. In an ideal world, what do you think it would take to get more sales from having a better presence on LinkedIn? Just give people a moment to write that down. You can tell I do a lot of workshops. Have you written it down? So this is, I'll say it again. In an ideal world, what do you think it would take in order for you to solve that problem of not having enough sales from a lack of presence on LinkedIn or lack of authority on LinkedIn? Now, I'm doing a couple of things here. I am using their language. Yeah. You described a lack of presence, and you'd also described a lack of authority. And you also got a bit more specific that the problem was the lack of sales that you perceived to have come from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that important? It's because if I do not do that, then I'm going to be introducing them to a whole new set of language that is just not in their realm. Yeah. I'm going to be talking to them about the ins and outs, the features, right? And we all know about features versus benefit. All I have is to talk about the features. And all I can do is then guess at what the benefits are until I'm lucky and I happen upon that benefit, which is improved sales.
Right.
Okay. So it's very much so. So yes, this is why it sounds as if I'm being very pedantic. However, the upside is that you'll convert more. Why is that? And viewers of this, they can rewind and you can have a look. Is that the moments when I repeat back to you what you described as being your ideal solution, you couldn't help yourself, Gareth, but to nod away.
Yes. Well, it's because I totally agree.
There you go. How can you not agree? Because it is what you wanted. It is the solution to your problem. Yeah. Right. Now, there is a stage in the sales process where, of course, I'm going to have to describe exactly what it is within my offering that are the things that achieve that for you. Right. That is not yet. That is when we, that might be a specification, for example. But when people are looking for a solution, that is not the specification. Okay, it's really, really important in the conversation about sales. And this happens during your sales meeting or your sales conversation. You might have qualified. You might have started off a conversation by saying, "Okay, listen, I hear you're in the market for." Improving your LinkedIn, you've heard about me. If you were to do something on it, when do you think you'd be in a position to do it? Is this something for now, next week, next month? When? Or no particular date? Fine. So you're qualifying it. Right. Let me ask you then, What's the problem? What's keeping you up at night? What is it about having a better? Why did you contact me? You know, what's the pain that you're facing? We all know these sorts of questions, but we very rarely ask them. And we very rarely write down the answers. If we are equipped with the answers to those questions, then we can ask them what they think it would take in an ideal world in order to solve those problems. And we can add, if we want, just to be able to prompt them to make them motivated to tell us, is that because, by the way, I probably have a solution to that because all my clients come from a very similar thing, right? I'm doing LinkedIn all day long. All right. So just tell me what you think it would take. And, you know, very often in business services, they're going to be describing exactly what your service does. Right. But in their terms, and you'll learn a hell of a lot about the sort of problem that they face as it happens to them. It's a very, very quick conversation, but it's usually ignored.
So the critical path here is to really start by saying, tell me in your own words. That's the critical path, isn't it? Because you can't repeat it back to them unless they've told you themselves in the first place. So
correct.
You've got to get them to tell you in the way in which they think it, why doing X is going to help them do Y. In this case, you're relating it to LinkedIn presence to more sales, right?
Correct. And you can delve in more detail if you want. You know, if you have the time, and if the offering that you're selling is, you know, got enough money in it to make it worth your while to do this each time, you know, I'll be asking them a little bit more about, you know, what the lack of sales from their lack of LinkedIn presence means to them. You know, why is that? Why do you need more sales from LinkedIn?
Right.
You know, so and then you could go down a whole load of different things. You know, back in the early days of sales schools, from the likes of IBM, you know, salespeople would be taught to ask the question why 3 times in a row.
It should be mentioned at this point that I do now have a sister company called All Sorts of Hats to do it on all the other
platforms,
all the other ones as well. So Many Purple Hats deals with LinkedIn, and All Sorts of Hats deals with all the other.
Well, which ones are they? Facebook.
Well, it's actually now even Blue Sky is
Blue Sky.
So even Twitter, Bookface, yes, X, or whatever it's called, all that nonsense. Everything I have no interest in or no understanding of, that's dealt with. Kirsty Hall would be pleased to talk to you about that. In fact, we now even have a mini website of allsortsofhats.com. So do take a look.
We'll take a look. Brilliant. Yeah. So, you know, there in a nutshell is what solution selling actually is.
Right.
And, you know, it is a pedantic linguistic thing. However, if you want to convert more deals, we need to be asking the buyer what they see as being the ideal solution to their problem.
And that, as I said, that's the most critical element. I think a lot of people plumb straight in there and tell people what they think they want to hear, rather than actually asking them to tell them what it is they actually want.
Right. It's almost irresistible to tell them, because we've seen it a million times before. We've helped so many people in their situation. You know, we know exactly what the thing is. You know, they can even knock on the door, open the door. I don't know what you want. You want to be able to improve your sales.
Then you'll need the Okie Dokie 2000. Then that's what you'll need.
Exactly. And we need to add the turbo bit onto the side as well.
Of course. And the
people don't buy that way. You know, people do not buy that way. They want to be able to link whatever it is that you're selling to the very.
But I think they used to. I think they used to buy that way.
They did used to buy that way, because that's, you know, that was just the way. But people are long in the tooth. Yeah, people are rightly suspicious of people selling, because everything's so competitive. Yeah, if you want your thing to stand out and you want your thing to be bought in a solution selling way, this is how you do it. You don't have to do it this way, but if you want conversion rates, business services, this is how you do it.
Well, look, guys, I think it's plain to see that the words solution selling have been misused for quite a while now. They did used to mean something, would you believe? But now it's been misused to mean actually forcing your solution on them, rather than actually listening to what they want and then really delving in, finding out whether you actually have the right things to help them. It's a matter of asking up front and then using their own words to float it back to them, so that that also builds. Wouldn't you agree, David? That also builds a sort of very thin veneer of trust that you actually bothered listening and repeating back to them.
I would say it's far beyond a thin veneer of trust. I think it is not just a thick amount of trust. It's not a veneer, it's the truth. Because when you force yourself to listen to somebody else because you know you're going to be repeating it back, it actually does make you listen more intently.
Right.
Yeah, and that means that you will be more trusted, at least to be able to hear what they've said.
And on that note, I want to thank David Chernick for giving us yet more information about solution telling. Sorry, I'm being called by the hospital. Apologies for that. And to all of you out there, please keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. And please try and look after that mental health. Until next week. Bye-bye.